To get the slate, we are rolling.
Okay. All right, Chad, I'm going to get ready to start. If you'll hold this in front of you.
And when I get done reading the slate, will you have someone take that from Lawrence,
I
or
will.
how will we?
I will.
Okay. So are we all ready to go
We
then?
are ready and we are recording.
You good? Are you ready, Lawrence?
Absolutely.
Okay. Today's date is March 8th, 2024. My name is Chad Gibbs, and I have the pleasure of interviewing Lawrence McColm for the USC Shoah Foundation. This is a remote interview. Mr. McColm is in West Palm Beach, Florida, and I am in Charleston, South Carolina. Mr. McColm, could you please introduce yourself? You say your full name and spell your first and last name, please.
Well, I was born Marcel Fachler, M-A-R-C-E-L, F-A-C-H-L-E-R. That is my birth name, and I am a hidden child of the Holocaust.
Okay. And when were you born?
I was born on the 3rd of September, 1939, 3 days after Germany invaded Poland.
Wow. How old are you today?
I am 84, going on to 85 in September.
Okay. Where were you born?
I was born in Antwerp, Belgium.
Okay. And where were your parents from?
Well, my father was born in Jaffa, Palestine, which was part of the Ottoman Empire. The Ottomans were the Turks. They had a very long established time from 1299 to 1923, and they ruled mainly the Middle East and part of Saudi Arabia as well as the Balkans. And he was born in 1906, and after anti-Semitism started off, his parents moved to Berlin in Germany.
And what year do you know that they moved to Berlin?
Well, that was when he was 2 years old, so it must have been around 1908. Now, to get from Haifa in Palestine at that time to Germany was a long trek, because you had to take a boat from there all the way to Marseille in France, and then take a train to Berlin in Germany. So that took a long time. Why he chose there, we have not been able to find out.
What's your father's name?
My father's name was Joseph Fachler.
And can you tell us about where your mother's from and her name?
My mother was born in 1915 in Berlin, Germany. She was from Polish descent.
And her name?
Her name was Hanchen, H-A-N-N-C-H-E-N, Hanchen Fachler. They were married they met, by the way, in 1936, were married in 1937. My father became a lawyer. My mother became a dentist.
Was your father was a lawyer in Germany, in the German law?
Yes.
I'm realizing we got going pretty fast. We should introduce your name today.
Well, my name today came after I was born, and when the Germans invaded Belgium in 1941, my father saw the writing on the wall, as it were, and tried to hide me, and he hid me in an orphanage with 50 other Jewish children. And it was a very difficult time, because how can I explain to you that at the age of 18 months you don't know what's happening?
Yeah.
So there I was, been taken away from everything I knew and put in an orphanage. And when you see the pictures, me and the other children, you know that there are two kinds of Jews. Some are Sephardim, other are Ashkenazi. Now the Sephardim are dark complexion like me, North Africa and the Middle East. The Ashkenazis are white-skinned, usually brown hair, some blonde hair, but mainly from Eastern Europe. As you can see, I am definitely a Sephardic. And when you see the pictures, which I will show you later, I stand out like a sore thumb. Absolutely a sore thumb compared to all these other white faces. I was the only dark one. And of course, because of that, I thought I was very special, because when the Germans in their black uniforms and black boots and big attack growling dogs came to the orphanage, I was immediately whisked away to the attic. Now the structure was absolutely a magnificent house. It had beautiful grounds, and it was surrounded by a fence, iron fence, and a major gate. And that's where the Germans came in. So as soon as they wanted to get into the property, I was whisked away to the attic. It was a beautiful structure, I must tell you, spiral staircases, wooden floors, bedrooms on every floor. I mean, I slept with 8 other children in one of the rooms. So whisked away I was to the attic. Now, in the attic, there were lots of paraphernalia and also a few oil drums, like 44-gallon drums, you know, about that size. And I was put at the age of 18 months until I was 4.5. Every month, when the Germans came, I was put in the empty drum. A false top was put on top, and on top of the false top itself, there was oil, motor oil. On the drum itself, the words motor olie, which is motor oil in Dutch. And the 2 O's were drilled, and that was how I was able to breathe. Now, when I was 18 months or even 1 or 2 years old, it wasn't too difficult. But when I became 4 or 5, then it was very difficult. I was told not to move, not to say anything. And what they did also, they sprinkled pepper around the drum. So when the Nazis came with their attack dogs to the attic, and I must tell you that I was absolutely scared. My heart was beating 100 miles an hour. Can you imagine 18 months, 2 years old, 3 years old? And when I heard the dogs come very close and started scratching just around the drum, I thought that my heart was going to explode, and I was hoping that the Nazis would not hear my heartbeat. Anyway, the pepper worked, the dogs sneezed, and then the Germans left. I was saved again. The property, I'm sorry, the property was really a fantastic place, but I could never get out of the property itself. It was just like a prison.
So despite changing your name, they always hid you because they thought you were looked too different?
Well, let me give you a bit of background because of that. As I was put in the orphanage, the Belgian underground, with the help of 3 Catholic priests, were able to provide all the 50 children with new identities. And that is how I became Lawrence Allen McColm, a far cry from the Jewish name Marcel Fachler, or Fachler if you wish in French. That is how I became Lawrence Allen McColm. Now, the orphanage was run by a Christian lady with the other 3 Catholic priests and her 2 sisters, and she was a very tough lady. She had to be, to try and keep order in the place.
Yeah. What was her name?
Her name was Madeleine Sorel, and I had something to do with getting her name on the wall number 4 at Yad Vashem.
Getting her recognized as righteous among the nations?
And that is correct.
What was the name of this this home or orphanage?
Oh, it was called Beau Séjour, which means a beautiful stay. That's where the home, that's how it was called.
And where is that located?
Well, that was located in Coxide, which is very close to the North Sea and the country of France. I saw my parents, unfortunately, only once a year. And of course, I could not remember them, and it was always a very difficult stage.
Do you know how your parents got you into this place?
They paid. It's as simple as that. They paid money for me to stay there, and how much it was, I was never able to establish. My father didn't want to really talk much about it. My mother, on the other hand, was a bit more flexible, but I have very little information. All I can remember are the punishments I got. Because even at the age of 2 and 3, I peed in bed a lot. I was always punished because of that, and the punishment were, to me, rather severe at the age of 2 and 3. They put the soiled sheets around my shoulders. I had to face the wall, and I had to put a dunce cap on my head, face the wall in the cafeteria, as it were, and all the children were teasing me. Welcome to my upbringing at the age of 2 and 3.
Wow. Ken, I wanted to go back to asking about your family and religion before. Do you know if they were religious before the war?
Before the war, my father's father was a very orthodox person. My father was very religious. He used to go to synagogue every Saturday. So, from that point of view, he believed very much in Judaism, and all the holidays were certainly observed.
And your mother?
My mother came from a much more secular type of Jewishness, not so much, but of course they fell in love, and of course life continues.
Yeah. That gives me room now to ask about going into the orphanage at such a young age. How did you come back out of it? Did you even know you were Jewish?
No. First of all, there were no religious education whatsoever, which was unusual in circumstances like that. Apart from that, I was never felt loved. I couldn't be felt loved among 50 others. Never knew I was Jewish. I had no idea what being Jewish meant. Absolutely none. All I was concentrating on was one word, and that is survival. And that has been my motto for the rest of my life.
Indeed. So your whole family was in Belgium at the time it was invaded. Do you know when and why they decided to leave Germany?
Well, they decided to leave Germany after Kristallnacht, the night of the broken glass. You know the history of it. Thousands of Jewish homes, businesses, synagogues were burnt down. My father's father, Gershon, lost one of his sons to the Gestapo and then decided from there on to leave Germany and took a car and went to Antwerp where he had friends, Antwerp in Belgium. My mother's parents, on the other hand, considered themselves German first, Jewish second, instead of Jewish first, German second. And they could not believe what actually happened a few years later. They were all deported and died in the concentration camp. Compared to that, I'm one of the lucky ones, and I must tell you that everybody calls me a survivor. I don't know if I really am a survivor because I was hidden away. I didn't go to a concentration camp, but they died. I lost another 21 members of the family to the concentration camps.
Wow. And your parents had made the decision to go to Belgium. Do you know why they picked that place?
Well, first of all, the reason they picked the place was because my father's father was in Antwerp, Belgium, so they wanted to join them. And they paid to get smuggled out of Germany into Belgium. And it was a group of about 20 Jews, and amongst them was a young lady with a newly born baby. And she had the baby in her arms and a blanket covering the baby. As they got through the woods from Germany into Belgium, she unraveled the blanket. The baby was gone. She had lost her baby in Germany in the woods. She was, of course, inconsolable and ran back into Germany screaming the name of the child. Of course, she was never seen again.
And they get into Belgium. They're in Antwerp.
That
when
is
the war
correct.
begins.
They're in Antwerp, yes. And then, of course, after Germany invaded Belgium, my father went to the Turkish embassy in Brussels, capital of Belgium, and demanded a Turkish passport. And got a Turkish passport. You have to keep in mind that Turkey and Germany were allies during the Second World War, and that precluded him to having to wear the yellow Jewish star that all Jews were obliged to wear. If you did not wear it, then you got shot on it. In fact, if I may show you exactly what it is, what it looks like. There you are.
Just like that.
A replica of the Jewish star that all Jews had to wear. And they have it in different languages. One is in Dutch, the other one is in French, and this, of course, is in German. So this is what had to happen, and he didn't have to wear that specifically because he was considered a Turkish citizen. Let me just move that ever so slightly. There we are. That's better.
How about your mother?
My mother had to wear it. My mother was not able to get dispensation for that. And she was hidden in cellars for the following few years of the occupation. In fact, at one stage, she was even put in prison. Happily, she was able to contact my father, who got her out of prison, as well as a few other people.
I want to try to zoom in on that. How was he able to get her out of prison?
Simply by arguing his case to the court, being the wife of a Turkish citizen. Turkey and Germany were allies, and that is the way he progressed through the hearings.
So your family had to make the decision to sort of split up. You were hidden as a child in the orphanage. Your father had the passport that helped him and advocated for your mother. Did you have siblings at the time?
No. Happily not. During the war it would have been difficult. However, my sister was born before the end of the war in 1944, or 43 or 44, something like that. And she was put in the same orphanage as I was, but only stayed there for less than 6 months.
What's your sister's name?
My sister's name was Rose Marguerite Faschler. Rose, R-O-S-E, Marguerite, the beautiful name.
How long did you stay at this orphanage?
I stayed from 1941 till 1944. That's when the Germans requisitioned the orphanage, and all the children had to be put in various other structures. My father didn't like that at all. He negotiated for me to stay at a farm in Louvain, which is much closer to Antwerp. The farmer that I was staying with didn't have any children. Obviously, my father paid for my stay there. But it was fantastic, I must tell you. It was freedom. Finally, freedom. I had open fields. I was able to run everywhere. They had little farm animals. I had never seen a chicken. I had never seen a goose, a donkey, a horse, a bull, a cow. I didn't know the difference between a cow and a bull. And I started making friends with the little animals, and I started talking to them and playing with them. I made one big mistake. I said hello to the bull. He didn't like that at all, and he started charging, and I had to run for my life to get over the fence. And I must tell you, many years after that, I still had nightmares that the bull chased me, was about to grab me and eat me. That's when I woke up. Absolute nightmares.
So when did you get to this farm?
To the farm immediately after the Germans requisitioned the home, and it was fantastic. To me, it was just liberating. Just to give you a little anecdote, we had the visit of a couple who had a beautiful young child, my age, around 4.5, 5 years old. Beautiful girl, blonde hair, blue eyes, white skin. She had on a white dress, and we were asked to play in the barnyard. So we said, okay, let's go and play. We decided to play hide and seek. Unfortunately, she fell on the manure stack. So not only did she smell to high heaven, but her dress was completely ruined. She screamed, cried, ran into the farmhouse, and accused me of pushing her on the manure stack. Total betrayal. And ever since then, I have never been with a beautiful blonde with blue eyes and white skin. I stayed away from that kind of woman all my life.
How was this farmer to you?
The farmer was very strict. I had my own room. I had some tuition, which I hated, but to me it was just like another prison. It was slightly better because I had open fields and I was able to run around. And one day I decided not to come back before dark. The farmer got on his motorbike and found me somewhere in the woods, put me on the handlebars with my feet in the front, and started driving very fast on potholes. I was so scared. Again, I peed my pants. But the punishment was pretty severe. I was hit on the butt fairly heavily, and I was not able to sit for about 2 or 3 days. I never did it again.
For sure. Would you kind of compare the two places that you were hidden, comparing Madeleine Sorel and this farmer? How do you think of them next to each other?
Well, totally different. Totally different. One was a group of 50 children. There I was the only child, except for certain visits of friends. So it was a totally different dynamics. I was left alone most of the time. I was given some tuition, but very little.
Mm-hmm. And I'm just thinking that you helped get Ms. Sorel recognized, but what about the motivations of the farmer?
Well, the motivation of the farmer was certainly not religious. He was being paid by my father. How much, I've never been able to find out. But for him, it was a financial transaction. At some risk, of course, because if he was ever found out, he would be in real trouble.
True. Was it just you and the farmer, or
yes,
was there
and his wife? Yes.
And his wife.
Yeah, and his wife. But things remind me of a few anecdotes. Every week, the farmer's wife took a chicken by the neck, took a razor blade and cut the neck, and dropped the blood in the glass and drank it. I was absolutely horrified. But at that time, it was supposed to be the cure for anemia. Of course, now we know that it was not. But it's one of those little things that keep your brain going back to that time.
Indeed. Just in case we haven't said this, I'm not sure. Do you know the location of the farm or what to put it next to?
No. I did go and see the farmer a few times after the war, but and then the farm was sold, and I lost complete contact.
Well, that's interesting. What was that relationship like that you actually went back and saw them again?
Well, I wanted to thank them for taking the risk of hiding me. That's the right word. It was definitely a risk, the same way the risk of Madeleine Sorel, as well as the 3 Catholic priests. They were held, and of course the Belgian underground.
Were those visits when you were an adult, or?
No, that was before the age of 13, just before my bar mitzvah.
So you went with your parents?
I went with my parents to the film. But then, of course, I was put in a school in Antwerp as we got back with my father's father. And again, it was just like going to prison. It was absolutely horrible. And it was exactly the same as the school I had in Brussels. I hated schools. I ran away most of the days. I came back from school in Brussels. I'm sorry to go back slightly. Back from school, I took my school bag and threw it over the fence and ran away until dark. And at that time, there were still tanks American tanks in the streets. And the American soldiers threw candy to me as I was walking by. And I thanked them, and we had a little talk. And I started dancing for them. And the more I danced, the more candy I got. I loved American soldiers, as you can well imagine. So we go back now to Antwerp, where I'm in a different school. But it was terrible. It was absolutely horrid. And I must tell you that the anti-Semitism that occurred in Belgium was horrific. They were horrific for the psyche of a young person. I remember walking in the park, for instance. I was spat on, I was kicked, and I was called a dirty Jew. Every time I was walking in the park. So that leaves a pretty nasty feeling, I can assure you. And this is why after my bar mitzvah, I started denying my Jewishness.
And that's all, just so people hear us say it, that's all even after the war.
And that is after the war, absolutely. I was, after my bar mitzvah, I just had so many unanswered questions about being Jewish, and even after that, I never dated a Jewish girl. Never.
No.
In fact,
Well-
anyway, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I didn't want to have anything to do with being Jewish. Nothing, because it always brought back horrible, horrible memories.
And that lasted for quite a long time.
Oh, it lasted until I was 75 years old. That's how long it lasted. I was dating a Catholic girl at the time, and my mother wasn't very happy with it. With
And
the
that's, you say at the time, you mean in Belgium?
In
after the
Belgium,
war?
yes, in Belgium. But I was such a bad student. I was always last in the class. Always, always, always. I never did any homework. I was a troublemaker. That absolutely, without any doubt, rebellious, whatever you want to call it, it was not my thing. So at the age of 15, my father decided that, okay, academia is obviously not for me. So he wanted me to learn a profession. So he enrolled me in a pastry school course, a 3-year course. So I became a pastry chef. But to give you an idea of the type of anti-Semitism that occurred, on the first day that I went to that school, I sat in the back and all the other children were in front of me. The teacher put his head sideways and said, "Don't believe that I'm Jewish because I have a crooked nose." Everyone in front of me turned around, knowing very well that I was Jewish because of my dark complexion. If only I could have found a hole to hide in, I would have. But that was my introduction. That is part of an anti-Semitism that occurs even today.
And did you complete pastry school?
Oh, yes, yes. I completed the 3 years of pastry school. I didn't like it at all because I didn't want to wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning and start baking bread. So that wasn't the type of thing. So my father decided, well, you're going to do something. So he enrolled me as an apprentice to a diamond cleaver. Keep in mind that Antwerp is the diamond capital of Europe.
Yeah.
The cleaver, the diamond cleaver, is a person who takes a rough diamond and makes an incision with a flat triangular diamond into the other diamond and then puts a steel blade to open up the original diamond to annihilate the impurity. Again, I didn't particularly like that very much because I was hunched over like this for 8 hours a day. I didn't like that. So I started buying and selling diamonds. And that is how I learned the diamond trade. But at the age of 26, when my mother was fed up with my Catholic girlfriend, she shipped me to Sydney, Australia, some 10,500 miles away from Belgium. She had a great aunt there, and that's where I went to Australia. I didn't dare say no to Mother. Mother was a tiger. I tell you what, I remember her chasing me around the house with a wooden spoon because I was a horrible child.
Amazing. Well, that gives us, your age 26 and going to Australia gives us a place to come back to, but I want to ask you a couple of questions that we went by. Do you remember anything about the moment of liberation?
The moment of liberation to me was my parents picking me up from the farm. I didn't know them or barely knew them. I saw them maybe 4 or 5 times over the last 5 years. And but they showed me a lot of love and a lot of happiness. I started trusting again. And the reason I use the word trust is because before I left the farmer put me on a dining room table, standing up, and said, "Jump, I will catch you." And I hesitated because to me, at the age of 5, it was pretty far down, and it was a floor of stones. So anyway, he persuaded me to jump. I jumped. He took 3 steps back, and I fell to the floor and hurt myself. And he said to me, and I will never forget this, "Let this be a lesson. Never trust anyone." Why he did that, I have no idea, but it stayed with me, and I have great difficulty trusting anyone because of that incident. And I never had friends. I still don't have friends. No, I'm a loner. I have a problem, I have to solve it myself. I always have all my life.
Do you think that the way you feel about school also has something to do with the orphanage and being put in institutions?
Oh, yes, without any doubt whatsoever. I felt totally imprisoned. I love liberty, I love open spaces. But as I said, I'm a loner. I don't like people. It's as simple as that. I don't like people.
And in schools, you're kind of put
And
around.
in schools, I was able. I mean, Because of my swarthiness as I was in the schoolyard. I remember in the schoolyard of the pastry, I was, 15, 16 years old. One of the students called me Chinese. I was so enraged that I felt that I had to do something. So I punched him in the gut and he fainted. I don't know if it was too strong or not, whatever, but that solved the problem in the sense that nobody ever started berating me anymore.
Well, lacking a better way to jump back to being 26. When you're 26, you head out to Australia.
Yes.
How do you begin a life there?
Well, first of all, it wasn't that difficult because I stayed with my great aunt's, my mother's great aunt. I stayed there for a few days. I enjoyed the beaches. I mean, it was fantastic. For the first 3 months, I did nothing else, but every day I went to the beach. It was absolutely glorious. But after 3 months, it was time to start earning a living. And with the help of a few of the diamond people I left behind in Belgium, I was able to get supplies, and I started selling diamonds to jewelry stores and jewelry manufacturers.
Okay. So is Australia where you established a family of your own?
No. Well, yes, in many respects, yes. I got married to a non-Jewish lady, of course, that goes without saying. We had a beautiful little girl in 1970, and life was pretty good. But I never went to synagogue. I tried to hide my Jewishness as much as I possibly could, although I must tell you that in Australia, in Sydney, Australia, I never felt really bad anti-Semitism like in Europe. In Europe, it was absolutely horrific. Walking in the streets, walking in the park. Oh, it was terrible.
And I would imagine then that your daughter was not raised Jewish?
My daughter was not raised Jewish. No, she's not. She still lives in Australia at the moment. The marriage ended in divorce, which was not a very happy one. And at that time, I was visiting all the opal mines, which is the original gem of Australia. And I was getting them cut, and then sending them, or traveling, in fact, to Hong Kong and to Germany to sell them. Australia, when I got there in 1965, you must understand, geographically, it's nearly the same as the United States, geographically, but only had 16 million people, less than California.
Right.
And even today, it only has 22 million people. So infrastructure was very, very small. And of course, I was very limited because of the long distances between Australia and Europe and the United States. I moved to Hong Kong, and I lived in Hong Kong for 5 years. That's where I was selling gems to a lot of the jewelers. I was traveling to all the various diamond mines, the ruby mines, the sapphire mines, and so on, from South America to Colombia, to give you some idea of how foolish one can be in the gem business. Here you are, going into Bogota, Colombia, where the most magnificent emeralds are. You get into your hotel, next day you take the jeep up the mountain, and there are the miners And who were the miners? And if you know your history, the FARC, the terrorists, if you remember the history, right? So here I am, a small table in front of me, cut emeralds in the back, rough emeralds in the front, and a machine gun facing you. Let's have coffee, let's do some business. And you have $500,000 cash, American dollars, in your bag. And you're all alone up there. I mean, today, I would never do it again. First of all, today I couldn't travel with that kind of money anyway. But at that time, it was that. And we became friends after that. And I asked him, why don't you kill me? Take my money, nobody would know. He said 2 reasons. Number 1, you're a foreigner, you're registered at your hotel, you don't come back at night, police will start inquiring. We do not want the police here in the mine. And secondly, since you're going to come back every month, as you say you will, we'll make more money doing business than if I took your money at this stage. And we became friends. Unfortunately, he was killed a year later by another miner. But the same thing happened in Sri Lanka. I dealt with the Tamil Tigers. They owned the mines. And even in the Paraíba area, the northeastern part of Brazil, where the tourmaline come from, beautiful stone, everybody had a machine gun, everybody was wearing a gun. And when I think back, I said I must have been absolutely crazy to have done that. But I did.
Heck of an interesting life. Why don't we take a quick break there so that we can just have a stand up and come back.
Okay.
If you would like to use the restroom, I can show you where
No,
that is.
no,
You're good?
I'm fine. No, I'm fine.
Okay.
It's mostly a let's think about where we're at right now, Lawrence, and a break, like we talked about on the phone yesterday. How do you feel? I know that we want to cover how your dad saved lives, so we would want to come back to that, I think.
Well, as I said, the only way I can answer that is that he was going to court on behalf of the people that were imprisoned, and was able to persuade the judge to release them.
But also, like Turkish passports. Did he get Turkish passports for people? Is that
No.
part of the story, or?
No. A Turkish passport you could only get if you had a birth certificate that showed that you were born under the Turkish rule.
Okay. Is there anything else then chronologically we're in Hong Kong, but is there anything from before Hong Kong you'd want to come back to?
Not really. No, I just traveled a lot. My marriage, because of I was away 9 months of the year. You can well imagine it didn't go down too well, and it was a nasty divorce, and I didn't see my daughter for many, many years. And this is why we haven't bonded as much. It's only after her mother died that she opened up and came back to the fold, as it were.
Well, if you don't mind talking about that, we can cover that as well.
Whichever.
Would like to?
Yes, of course.
Okay. All right. Well, I just wanted to make sure I didn't miss anything from before we got to Australia. But I think we're doing pretty well. So let me think. What will be my opening when we come back? Do you have more to say about your time in Hong Kong?
My time in Hong Kong was a real shock. When I mean a real shock, the culture was so foreign to me that it was very, very, very difficult for me to get into it. the, the pollution of people in such a small area was horrific. And to give you an idea, there were many 50-story tall buildings, and most of the cooking was done on the balcony, which means that when you walked in the street under the balcony, oil was flowing down and you got stung. But I traveled at that particular time, I traveled around the world every 6 weeks, and I did that for 15 years. 15 years around the world, every 6 weeks. The worst time I had was I went around the world in 5 days. I slept in the plane for 3 days and worked for 2 days and had no hotel bill. I've only done this once and I'll never do it again, let me assure you.
Yeah.
But no jet lag. It was too fast. Too fast.
I guess not. All right, so we'll come back to Hong Kong and just move forward from there. But just wanted to make sure that I didn't miss anything you wanted to cover from the earlier years.
No. You know, the trauma of the oil drum has stayed with me even today, in the sense that when I come home at night, all the lights in every room have to be on.
Well, let's save that. Don't tell me that story when we're not like in the interview. So I'm ready to come back, and I'm talking to. I'm sorry, I don't remember the name of who's in the room with you.
Go ahead.
Brent.
It's Brent.
Brent, are we all set?
We are set. We are rolling.
Okay. Yeah, it's that kind of a different, not used to that, not shutting off. So I will just say what I would normally say so that they can cut back together however they choose to. But I'll introduce us back into the interview, Lawrence.
Yes.
So just coming back from a break in our interview with Lawrence McColm. And when we left off, we were talking about your life in Hong Kong. Could you tell us about living in Hong Kong and all the traveling that you were doing at the time?
Well, living in Hong Kong was not a pleasant experience. First of all, the humidity was absolutely horrific. The people, I did not understand them at all. They spoke very little English, although it was under British rule at the time. And the type of mentality that they had, I could not understand, so I never made any friends. But I was traveling a tremendous amount. At the time, I went around the world every 6 weeks, from one mine to the other, from one country to the other. And I can give you some anecdotes of my travels to Bogota in Colombia, if you like to hear it. You go get to your hotel, next morning you take a jeep and you go up to the mines, and there are the miners with a little wooden table, and they had the cut emeralds in the front, the rough emeralds in the back, and a machine gun facing you. And you had 500,000 American dollar cash in your bag. The first time, I must tell you, I peed because I wet my pants. I was so frightened. But we became friends. Unfortunately, he died, he was killed a year or so later. And of course, I dealt with other people. And I asked them, why don't you kill me? Throw me down one of the mine shafts, nobody would ever find me. Take my money. He said 2 reasons. Number one, you're registered as a foreign entity here. If you don't come back to your hotel, they'll come looking for you. The police comes looking for you. We do not want the police here at the mines, because the miners were part of the terrorists called the FARC in the 1970s. And secondly, you say that you're going to come back every month for 15 years will make more money than if I just take your $500,000. So I don't know if that means honor among thieves or not. I have no idea. But when I think back of how stupid I was to do this, and the same thing happened when I went to Sri Lanka for the sapphires. I was dealing with the Tamil Tigers, also terrorists that were at the mines. And in the northeastern part of Brazil, the Paraíba area, everybody had a machine gun and everybody wore a gun. Talk about the Wild West. This is worse than the Wild West, let me assure you.
And you were in this business for about 15 years?
Yes, I went around the world for 15 years, every 6 weeks. The worst trip I ever did was around the world in 5 days, where I slept 3 days in the airplane. I was traveling first class, happily. 3 days in the airplane, and I worked for 2 days, and I did not have a hotel bill. I've only done it once and never again.
And you said when we spoke that the traveling is what caused a lot of problems with your family life?
Yes, I was traveling about 9 months a year, and that is not conducive to a good relationship. And divorce happened, and it was a nasty divorce because I had to continue traveling. And unfortunately, my wife at the time, whenever I came back to Sydney, Australia to say hello to my daughter, left the country with her, which means that I basically didn't see her for decades. It's only after her mother died that she came back to say hello to me. But, you know, we are close, but not as close as we should be.
What is your daughter's name?
My daughter's name is Kate Rachel, and she changed her name to Lawrence. Kate Rachel Lawrence. She did not want to be known as Kate Fashler. And she reverted back to Christianity.
So her last name is Lawrence?
Her last name is Lawrence. And that was her father's first name, and that's why she chose that.
Yeah. So how does your life in Hong Kong come to an end? Where do you go next?
Well, the life in Hong Kong was very nice in many respects, but you know, traumatic. Then as I was traveling so much, I came to the United States to sell some of my gems, and I became very friendly with a jeweler in Cleveland, Ohio. And since I wasn't doing anything and I was sick and tired of traveling so much, he persuaded me to stay with his firm. He had a jewelry store, and I helped him increase business by buying and selling gems. And that's how I came to Australia. To the United States.
Right.
But because of the anti-Semitism that I experienced, traumatic experiences all my life, I changed my name back to my nom de guerre, as it were, that was given to me as a young boy of 18 months. And I changed my name to Lawrence Allen McColm. I never wanted to have anything to do with Jews, never dated a Jewish girl, ever, because to me it was anathema.
That's, I think, really interesting to our telling your story, that for those years from the end of the war all the way up to coming to the United States, you were back to being Marcel Fashler.
Yes.
And then when you came to the United States, you changed your name when you, I don't know, did you apply for citizenship or was it
Oh,
like
yes, I applied and got citizenship. I'm now an American, a legal American citizen. Yes, I became an American citizen and continued in the gem business.
Interesting. And how long did you live in Cleveland?
In Cleveland, well, first, I lived in Cleveland until 2014. I met my present wife in Cleveland. I met her at the jewelry store I was working at, of all things, and we got along, and finally we got married.
What is your wife's name?
My wife's name is she is Debbie or Deborah Rowlands, Rollins.
And you met in Cleveland, and
Met in
how
Cleveland.
how did your career in Cleveland come to a?
Well, what happened is that I wasn't quite as happy as I should have been at the jewelry store, so I decided to open my own business, and I opened a jewelry-only pawn shop, which was a very, very profitable entity, I must tell you. I think I opened it in 1996, if I'm not mistaken, or 92, and sold it in 2014. We were very profitable. It was a very, very, very good business. And finally, somebody came and walked into the store and said, "I want to buy your business. How much do you want for it?" I gave him a price. He said, "Okay," and that's it. And because we had friends in southern Florida, we decided to move from Cleveland to Florida, and we went to Naples. And it was very quiet. I mean, it's too quiet for me. I mean, there was not much. They rolled up the pavement at 9 o'clock in the afternoon. so to me, it was very. And my wife, who was very social, she definitely wanted action. Anyway, we stayed in Naples. And driving up Route 41, I saw a sign that said Holocaust Museum. I said, well, I'm retired. I have nothing else to do. I might as well go on in there and have a look. Anyway, after a few hours of talking to the directors and all the other people, they persuaded me to tell my story as I'm telling it to you now.
Indeed.
And that is when I came out of the closet, as far as my religion is concerned. That is the first time at the age of 75 that I acknowledge being a Jew. I am a Jew, and I am a Jew that will talk about the 6 millions that were slaughtered.
Yes, sir.
By the Nazis. Sorry.
Not at all. So at age 75, you very powerfully came back to your identity and,
Yes.
and Jewishness. And this is when you began talking about your story too?
And this is when I began talking about my stories to universities, colleges, schools, whoever wants to listen, synagogues, gatherings, whatever. And that is really my exit strategy, as it were. Everybody needs an exit strategy. At the moment, I'm still working 3 days a week at my old age. But I think I'm going to stop by the time I'm 85. And I think that's what I'm going to continue doing here in South Florida, at the Holocaust Memorial Center, at the Holocaust Documentation Center, at the Shoah Foundation, and other organizations that. In fact, I was just contacted by the Claims Conference. They are going to start a speakers program as well. So I'm going to continue being busy.
Good. I want to ask, because I always ask of very young survivors, when did you learn about the Holocaust? Did your family talk about it? Did your parents ever tell you anything? Or
My
did you
father,
learn?
yes, my father touched on the subject when we were, 10, 12, 13, 14-year-old, not after my bar mitzvah, always before my bar mitzvah. And yes, he did say a few things, but not very much. My mother said a bit more, but I didn't get much information. I read a lot of books and talked to a lot of people, but I have a problem, and hopefully it's acceptable, that my belief in God is very strange. Some survivors believe in God, some survivors don't. I just happen not to believe anymore because I cannot believe that a God that is supposed to be merciful would allow holocausts and continue to allow holocausts. Look at Pol Pot, for instance, in Cambodia. 2 million people, genocide. Look at Rwanda, 800,000 Tutsis slaughtered, all that. My God is better than your God, and therefore I shall kill you. I mean, to me, all religions, I cannot believe in them. And that is a situation that I find, and I'm quite happy with it, very happy with it.
Sure. Yeah. That's not at all surprising. It's you'd find yourself in a lot of company there.
I think I do. So it's one of those things.
Yeah. So you learned some about the Holocaust from your father, from conversations with your father,
Yeah.
and then when you started going into the museum, did you research more about your own past then, or?
No. I had everything I know about my past came from my parents.
Okay.
From my parents, I knew. I haven't learned anything new that I did not know before. But the big change was me accepting the fact that I am Jewish and speak on behalf of them.
Indeed. And while we're on that note, unless there are other stories you want to tell, I think it's a good spot to ask you what your work talking about the Holocaust and these other evils in the world, what is your message?
Well, the
that you want to leave in the
message is very strong, or as strong as I can possibly make it.
Mm-hmm.
Anti-Semitism is a curse. Going back into history, Israel made a few mistakes, but we all do. To give you one of them, in my view, Ariel Sharon, one of the prime ministers in 2005, fell for the fact that land was supposed to be given to the Palestinians so that we could have peace. Look what happened. The Palestinian Authority lost the election to Hamas. Hamas took over and started bombing Israel.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that unfortunately at that time no one could predict. We couldn't predict that. And let me tell you, it's a very difficult situation. Let me give you an example. How do you think Americans would feel if Mexico, for instance, started sending missiles into Miami? Do you think that we would not retaliate? Do you think that we would accept it, turn the other cheek, as it were? I don't think so. Let me give you another few examples. In October, 1,200 Jews were massacred by Hamas. You extrapolate the figures. Israel, approximately 8 million people. America, approximately 340 million people. You extrapolate the figures, the 1,200 compared to the population comes down to 59,000 Americans slaughtered in one night. 59,000. How do you think you would feel? Exactly the same way as Israel is feeling. Israel has never started a war. It has always retaliated after being attacked. And we continue to do the same. And unfortunately, as of today, war in the north of Israel, in Lebanon, I think is nearly a certainty.
That is a sad reality.
It is very sad.
What messages for peace, if any, come from?
Well, my hope is that giving these talks to the children, I give talks to children that are 12, 13 years old, 15 to 17 years old, slight difference in what I say, and then to adults. I always try and tell them to, first of all, never to forget the Holocaust, or any Holocaust, and try and make the world a better place to live in. That is, to me, extremely important. By the way, do you know the difference between crimes against humanity and what's the other one? I've got a mental blank. Crimes against humanity.
Genocide?
Genocide, yes. My apologies. What is the difference between the two? I ask you, what is the difference? Interesting, isn't it? It's an interesting question.
A matter of scale, perhaps?
No, not even that. It came out of the Nuremberg trials after the war in 1945. Crimes against humanity is the annihilation of part of a group of people. Genocide is the annihilation of a total amount of people in a certain area. That is the difference. So calling for Israel, saying that it's genocide what they're doing in Palestine, in Gaza, is totally ludicrous.
These are tough times again.
It is tough times again, but Israel, in my view, Israel, in my view, has no choice. Has absolutely no choice in this endeavor. It has to annihilate, or has to try to annihilate, Hamas.
As we come toward the end of our conversation, even on these tough topics of today, do you have any last thoughts you want to share with the recording, or?
Well, first of all, I feel terrible that I did not accept my Jewishness until I was 75. I feel terrible about that, But that was my mindset at the time, and I know the reasons why I felt like that. And to me, even today, the reasons were valid. What I am very pleased about is that I finally came out and said, I am Jewish. And
Indeed.
the message is, never allow the Holocaust to ever happen again, if it's possible. Unfortunately, human nature is sometimes difficult.
This is true. Well, Lawrence, if that brings us to a close that you feel comfortable with, I want to thank you on behalf of the USC Shoah Foundation and myself for sitting for this interview with us. I just could not think that this is more important, and we all really thank you for telling your story.
It's been my pleasure, let me tell you. As I said, it's my exit strategy. I will continue.
Well, we're glad that you will.
Thank you.
Give me 1 second here.
Okay. We could transition to photos then.
How do you want to do the photos?
Just bear with me 1 moment.
Yeah.
Just getting the shot of the star on your chest.
Chad, how did that come out? Is it reasonable?
Yeah, very good.
Yes?
Very, very good. I think I don't know, maybe it's some of the things that I'm studying right now as a historian. I'm very, very interested, and I think it's very important what you tell us about when you came back to your identity, dealing with anti-Semitism over your whole life, and how that's clearly impacted your opinions and how you've even chosen to choose your name.
Yeah.
These
Well,
are
I
really,
went-
really important things
Yeah.
that people need to know.
I went back to the name I was given
Yeah,
as a child.
indeed. But that's a big deal. I even told a friend I'm gonna have an interview with a survivor who went back to his hiding name when he came to the United States, and we were like, wow, that's hard. That's
And of course now I don't want to change anything because all my papers, all my passports, all my credit cards, everything is in that name.
sure.
It would be absolutely horrific trying to revert back
Oh,
to myself,
I'm
actually.
sure of that. I'm sure of that.
Yeah.
One only has to watch a friend change her name after she gets married to
Yes.
find out how big of a pain in the butt that is. But even more so. So,
All right, let's start with the first one, please.
The first photograph.
First photograph. I'm gonna see if this will hold. It will.
oh, we all have the same haircut. That's the first time I've seen your head.
We do. It's called being aerodynamic.
Yes, we're all great swimmers.
We are. In fact, I do swim
There you go.
1,000 meters every second day.
Oh,
I still
nice.
do now, yes.
Well, don't shame me too much for being more active than I am. But okay, so I have this. Let me run this by you, Lawrence. How I usually do this. I'll say, at the end of Lawrence McColm's interview, he has some documents or photographs that he'd like to show us, and then I will ask you, what can you tell us about this photo? I might have follow-up questions, but it'll be real short.
Yeah,
for each.
they're going to be short answers, yeah.
Gotcha. So, are we ready?
Yes, we are. Go ahead, please.
All right. So now at the end of Lawrence McColm's interview, he has some photographs that he would like to share with us. Lawrence, could you tell us about this photo?
Well, this photograph was taken on my parents' wedding day, bride
Do you-
and groom, in
Can you
Germany.
remind us about the date of their
Yeah,
wedding?
they were married in 1937 in Berlin, Germany.
And what are their names again?
My father's name is Joseph. My mother's name is Hanschen.
Oh, yeah, I see. And I saw that one in your talk too. Okay. Lawrence, could you tell us about this photo?
Well, this photo was taken just before I was put in the orphanage. I was 18 months old. At that time, I had hair. Now, unfortunately, it's all gone.
And where do you think this photo was taken?
This was taken in Antwerp, Belgium.
That'll do it, I think.
Stand by.
Can you see the photographs?
I can.
You can.
It's a very good setup, actually. I mean, I've been through some very clunky versions of this. Your school picture.
No, that is the orphanage.
Oh, right.
Those are the 50 children, approximately 50 children. I'm sorry, am I?
No, let me introduce it or start it
Yeah.
so that you don't have to tell the story twice, is all I was thinking. So, Lawrence, could you tell us about this photo?
Well, this photo is taken on the steps of the orphanage. These are all the Jewish children I was hidden with. And as you can see, they all have white faces. Compared to me, I stood out like a sore thumb. That's me, just down there, right in the middle. And it's because of my swarthiness, as it were, that I was whisked away to the attic and hidden in a oil drum, an empty oil drum.
I think it's interesting that they weren't afraid to take a photo that had you in it, too. That's
Yes.
just interesting to me. That should do.
Bear with me one moment. I'll get a picture of it.
Sure. Oh, okay. I haven't seen that one before.
No.
Interesting. All right, Lawrence, could you tell us about this photo?
Yes, this photo was taken at one of my parents' visits to the orphanage, and it has my little sister Rose there. She must have been about less than 6 months old, and me and my father and mother are there as well.
And when do you think that might have been?
That
About
must
when?
have been in around 1944, just before I had to leave for the farm.
That should do. Oh, wow.
You haven't seen that one.
No. could you tell us about this photo too?
Well, this one was taken in Knokke, which is the seaside of Belgium. It was taken most probably around the 1950s, where you have my two sisters and my brother. The brother is the small one in the middle. You have my sister Rose, my sister Claudine. There's me, of course, and as you can see, I do a bit look Chinese, so I'm not surprised that they insulted me that way.
Who is the fourth person in the photo then?
Well, you have me there,
Okay.
my sister Rose, my sister
Yeah.
Claudine, and my brother Jackie.
Okay. That should do.
I don't know if they're relevant or not. That's up to you to decide.
Of course, sure, totally. Oh. Good picture of mom and dad. Got it.
Yes, that was after the war,
Hold on.
well in the late 1950s.
And I think we have one more photo. Is this the last photo?
This is the last photo. I don't know if you want this. This is an official document saying that I stayed at Home Beau Séjour in Coxide. I don't know if that's
Okay.
of any...
Yeah, I think we'll do that too then. Let's just do this picture real quick and then we'll do that as well. But, and who's in this photo, Lawrence?
Well, there you have my father and mother, way after the war, enjoying a restaurant outing.
And this is probably in Belgium then?
In Belgium, yes. I still, I think I remember the name of the restaurant, Goldoni. That's right, Goldoni was the restaurant.
Wonderful.
I don't know, do you really want this?
Sure, yeah.
Yeah.
That looks important.
It's in French, but doesn't matter.
Okay. Ooh.
Yeah.
It went running.
Run away. I'm sorry, I
Oh,
can't get to
I
it.
thought I had a paper clip too.
Oh, if you want one, I
Do you
have,
have one?
yes.
That'd be great.
I have something
I have
we could use.
requested just momentarily. Wonderful.
That helps.
Yes, sir, it does.
Nice. So I'll ask you probably a couple more questions about this one because I can't actually see it. It just shows up as white to me.
Unfortunately, yes.
Gotcha. But, all right, we have one last document to show. Lawrence, could you tell us what this is?
Well, this is a letter that is signed by the mayor of Coxide, where the home was. And just to state that Marcel Faschler was with us from the beginning of May 1941 until September of 1944, and my sister Rose Marguerite was also with me from 1944 for 6 months.
And when does this letter issue?
This was issued, let me see if I can see the date, sometime in 1967.
Okay. Is this part of a restitution process of some kind?
No, it was not. No, that was just information that we were able to get from Madeleine Sorel before she passed.
Is this to honor her then?
No, it is just information. It's just the fact to prove that I was there with my sister at the orphanage.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing those photos and that document with us. Seems good to me. Amazing. I hope you got framed versions of those.
Oh yes, I have a few
Good.
a few things. But you know, the Germans were really very clever, and I'm sure you know that all the death camps were in Poland.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
All the labor camps were in Germany.
Yeah.
They didn't want the population to know what was happening in Poland.
That is. Yep. That is pretty. It's always been something that we have to tell students about and kind of inform them. But it's also a matter of they took the killing machinery to where the people lived. Because
Correct.
Poland and further east is
Yeah.
where most of the Jews were.
That's right. And most of them were Ashkenazis.
Yeah. I will say, in our little chat here, I think that you are the only Sephardi person I've ever interviewed for the
Oh.
Shoah Foundation.
Yes, you know, my grandfather on my father's side, I think, were born in Egypt, if I'm not mistaken, and then moved to Jaffa for some unknown reason, and then left Jaffa, Palestine, because of anti-Semitism, and went to, yeah. They should have stayed. They should have stayed in Jaffa.
Yeah, yeah. My department chair, our chair of Jewish studies here at the College of Charleston, is Baghdadi. His family is Baghdad Jewish.
Ah, yes.
So he has the last name Ayalon, which not many people have heard, but there's a highway in Israel today, Ayalon Highway.
Oh, interesting.
We have no idea why there's a highway named Ayalon, but he's always like, it's my road. Yeah, so definitely rarer.
Yeah, well, you know, we all have a story. One is
Yeah.
more horrendous than the other. But as I said at the beginning, I don't feel that I'm a survivor, because what did I survive? Not seeing my parents except once a year.
This is just my 2 cents. If Nazism and if the dog trying to get through that pepper and that oil barrel could have gotten to you, they would have done the same thing to you. So I would call you a survivor,
Okay.
100%. That's what history will think of you as.
Well, it's only my own mishugas, as it were, that
A good Yiddish word.
a good Yiddish word.
But yeah, I mean, I think we absolutely honor you as a survivor, and we know that's what they intended for you, and thanks be that it didn't happen.
No, it didn't. I was one of the lucky ones. Yeah.
But it's such an important story, and I think there's a lot in it for people to learn, even right up to your opinions on the present. And I really can't thank you enough for doing this, and for all the speaking that you're doing, and the memory work, as I would call it.
And I will continue.
I'm glad. Just little old me telling you, but
Yet,
I'm
of
really
course.
glad that you do it. So I don't know. Do we have anything else that you need, or?
No, I'm fine.
I have a form that we fill out. It's called like an interview questionnaire. Maybe I could give you a phone call to help me fill out that form for you.
Certainly, yes.
Would you mind me calling you? Do you have a preference on which day of the weekend? Is that okay?
Well, it would have to. Well, I'm having my hip operated on, as you know, on the 18th of this month. So it would have to be before then, I presume.
Yeah.
Or we can do it following now, if you wish.
Well, I should run today, but
okay.
can I give you a ring this weekend? Is that okay?
Well, let me see. I work on Saturday, on Sunday. Yes, Sunday would be if that's all right with you.
Yeah, sure.